Hello and welcome to episode 59 of the CRICKETher Vodcast, and welcome to Chigwell School in Essex on the beautiful rolling banks of the M11, which you may be able to hear in the background. And behind us, Essex are playing Kent in the London Championship. More of that later. Last week we were at Berkshire. And we saw Berkshire play Worcestershire in two T20s, and the star of the day was Millie Holm, who hit 130 odd runs across the two innings and was really impressive for Worcestershire as they beat Berkshire in both of their matches. Millie Holm's an interesting player. She's a central spark, so she's part of the regional squad. She's not one of the pros, but clearly an exciting prospect. And someone who's already made an England appearance, but not at cricket, but at age group level on the lacrosse field. Now, Raf, for many years when I was growing up, sports people were expected to specialise very early, but I think that some recent research has perhaps changed attitudes towards that about people that play multiple sports, like Holm. We could see her hitting the cricket ball. She obviously hit the lacrosse ball as well. What's the latest on the research on multi-sports athletes?
Yeah, so my colleague at Bournemouth University, Tim Rees, has been doing research on this and published a very influential paper a few years ago that actually convinced the ECB to change their policy on this. So as you say, the traditional wisdom was that if you wanted to become a professional athlete, you needed to specialise at a very early age. But actually, the research that's been done all suggests that doing lots of different sports can develop multiple different skills, and that also it's perhaps unhealthy psychologically to specialise too early, and that the most successful, or you're more likely to be successful at one particular sport and be able to achieve a professional level if you don't specialise too early. So his research led to the ECB a few years ago actually changing their policy on this and suggesting that up to academy level, probably I think it's age 17 or 18, people, both boys and girls, should be encouraged to continue with other sports, and they shouldn't have to specialise until right at the point at which they become professional. I believe that's now the policy. So obviously that benefits somebody like Millie Holm, as you say, because she can go off and represent England at age group lacrosse. We know other people are playing hockey, for example. Also other sports, football, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit different to the age where we used to see people being, actually representing their country at senior level at multiple different sports. So with the way that women's cricket is now going more professional, you're unlikely to see somebody doing what Susie Bates did, for example, which was actually represent New Zealand at basketball and then move to representing them professionally at cricket. Actually, no, we're probably not going to see that, but on the other side of the coin, we are going to still see people being able to train up to a particular point, up to a particular age in multiple sports, and that can only advantage them. That's what the research says, so who are we to argue with it?
Absolutely. And I thought that what Holmes said after the match was very interesting also about what's happening with the academies and things this winter. Holmes has been part of that Sparks system, and they've been training in a much more professional setup, and you could really see that. And she in fact said, I spoke to her briefly afterwards from a safe social distance, and she said she really felt ready for the season. She felt ready when she went into the middle, and that was something new and different. And I really felt that there was an extra sort of dimension to the games of those players that have been training with the regional setups over the winter. There was more power. They were finding the boundary more easily. It was almost like they didn't seem to have to be hitting the ball quite so hard to get the same sort of distance. I think that bodes really well for what we're going to see this summer, and I think we're going to see a real step up in the quality of the cricket in the regional system this summer. So really looking forward to seeing that. Now, as I mentioned, we're at Essex v Kent today. That's still going on behind us. This is part of the London Championship. So the London Championship is a 50-over competition. It was played last year between the London counties, and this year they've added Sussex to the mix as well. Now, Raf, you had a little bit of a chat with Trevor Griffin earlier about the London Championship and about where it stood. What did Trevor Griffin have to say about it?
Well, I think that there are a couple of significant things that have happened today. First of all, he's obviously sent a couple of his Sunrisers squad members to play for Essex in this match. So we're seeing Lissy McLeod, normally seen more commonly seen for Berkshire, and we're also seeing Joe Gardner, who's more normally a Warwickshire player. But obviously he, as a coach, thinks it's really important that they get 50 over cricket under their belt ahead of the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy. So obviously that means that the London Championship is significant, therefore, for the for some of the regional coaches like him. The fact that he's actually turned up here, I mean, the sun's just come out, but it's not been a particularly pleasant experience. I went and hid in the car during the innings break because it's really cold. But he's here, he's watching, he wants to know what's going on, he's engaging with this competition, and I think that suggests that this is a deeply significant contest. Also the fact that the counties are prepared to kind of dig in their own pockets and fund the London Championship. They're not being funded anymore by the ECB to run 50 over women's county cricket, but they've got together as these 4 and now 5 counties, as you say, and decided, no, we want to keep funding and keep playing 50 over women's county cricket. So it's important for all those reasons, I suppose. And from our perspective, I think that it confirms something that we have probably said a few times, which is that the ECB made a bit of a mistake when they thought that they could just get rid of women's county cricket and that nobody would bat an eyelid and nobody would really be bothered. Actually, it turns out that these players and the people who are organising women's cricket care very deeply about the county game, deeply enough to actually continue with it themselves. And the fact that significant people like Trevor Griffin are sitting up and paying notice, I think should actually be something that the ECB pay attention to, and they should kind of understand that. And really, it should be the ECB funding this rather than the counties. In my view, that actually to just withdraw support for 50 over women's county cricket was a mistake. And I think that the importance of this competition that I've just described should hopefully make them appreciate that.
And what about Sussex joining? Because the London Championship does start to look awfully like the old Div 1, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That is significant, actually, and it's significant for a couple of reasons. As you say, it's taking the London Championship kind of out of London. It's widening it. Sussex were always one of the big wigs of the Women's County Championship. They won it a significant number of times, almost as many times as Kent, not quite as many, but a lot of times, and they were always there or thereabouts, weren't they? For most of it in Division 1. And also it's Claire Connor's old county that she represented very happily for many years. And there's a little bit of a kind of shot in the teeth there in the sense of if you're Claire Connor and you're trying to abolish 50 over women's county cricket and your own county is saying, hang on a minute, Claire, we're not very happy with this, so we're going to join the London Championship, you should really be paying attention to that, I think. So it's significant for a few reasons, and potentially does it maybe even suggest that we might see more counties becoming involved. I mean, the likes of Warwickshire, who are obviously normally up there in Division 1, could they join? I mean, they probably wouldn't be able to then call it the London Championship. I think that would be quite hilarious if they tried to carry on with that.
I don't know, we've had Berkshire in the West Midlands group in the T20 Cup, so...
It's true. But potentially you could see other counties joining, you could see it expanding, and the fact that Sussex have joined this season shows that it's not always going to be just those same 4 counties competing, that they are open to other people joining, they are happy for that, to facilitate that, and that that it's been successful as well. So long may it continue as far as I'm concerned, because it's brilliant to be watching 50 over women's county cricket.
It certainly is. And to now totally change tack from 50 over county cricket to the 100.
Oh.
The countdown to the 100 continues, and this week we've actually seen the first 100 match at Lords. Mm-hmm. It was basically an internal game, wasn't it? It was an MCC kind of blue side versus a red side or something.
Reds v yellows.
Sorry, got the colours wrong. But so it's an internal game. It involved a couple of stars from the past. Charlotte Edwards had a bat and a bowl, and Claire Taylor was there as well, and some up and coming players as well. So it's sort of typical MCC game, I suppose. After the game, they did some stuff on YouTube. You can actually go and watch that on YouTube. They did some interviews between Claire Taylor and Claire Connor.
Beth Barrett-Wild, Naomi Ditani,
Yeah.
and some people from the MCC as well.
But significantly also Kumar Sangakkara also spoke, one of the greats of the men's game from the last 20 years. What did he have to say, Raf, and what was the importance of what he had to say?
Yeah, so he did a video link right at the start. Obviously couldn't be there in London in person, but he'd done this kind of pre-recorded bit. And actually he said something that I thought was quite significant. It was a bit of an impassioned plea, and he basically said, look, the ICC and all of the member boards need to be investing more money in women's cricket, because cricket is for everyone. And really it's the kind of sentiment that many people express regularly, and we obviously do, but it's to hear it coming from the mouth of somebody like Kumar Sangakkara, who is obviously very influential in cricket administration and very well respected, and it is really important, I think, to have those kind of powerful allies in high places making those kind of statements. So let's just hope that the right people were listening, Sid.
Absolutely. Okay, well that's all for this week. We're going to turn around now and finish watching the game here. Carry on looking out for our updates over the weekend on CRICKETher.com. We're not using social media this weekend in solidarity with much of the rest of the sports community, but look out for updates on CRICKETher.com, and we will be back with another Vodcast for you in a week's time. Take care until then. Bye bye.